Welcome to Unity Inspired Living. Our community began in 1989 as a small worldwide Unity book study group, and we've continued the momentum as an ever-evolving spiritual community. Each Sunday, you will find dynamic thought leaders delivering inspiring messages and talented musicians sharing sound healing through their melody. Here, we embrace ancient spiritual traditions, universal truths, and emerging wisdom. Let's check out this Sunday message. We're so grateful you've joined us. Everybody, well, I get to be here this morning with the amazing Reverend TJ Woodward, and I know he's just so special and beloved to our community. He's been with us so long. He's like part of, just part of us. He's not a guest, is what I'm trying to say. So I invite us now to listen. Openness, curiosity, as TJ Woodward shares here, now, and unharmable. Thank you, beloved, for being with us.
Oh my goodness, my heart feels so full already with everything that has emerged in this last 30 minutes or so together. I just want to say thank you, Amy, for just anchoring us in this presence, truly anchoring this space. And wow, Beverly, I love this incredible music that comes through you and as you. It's just so incredible. And then Pat, my goodness, that reading, I feel like there's no reason to even do a talk. Let's just go back and hear that again. Presence is freedom. I love that. And we were talking about t-shirts. We were talking about getting some Unharmable t-shirts. Now I went PYIP. Plant yourself in presence. Because as I was thinking about it, which is an interesting way to say it, as I was thinking about presence, I was aware that presence doesn't actually happen in the mind. It's not a mental construct of being in the moment as much as I wanted it to be. I thought that presence was about being right here, right now. And of course, that is an element of it. What we're really talking about with plant yourself in presence, which I love that because as I think about planting yourself, I also imagine what's going to grow as you plant yourself in presence. And that there is a big difference between being present and being the presence. And that's where we reach this really this place to me that's really interesting and fascinating, and it's really beyond the mental construct. I've had these moments, as I know each of us has had at one time or another, where we tap into something and it feels like the mind disappears or the body disappears or what's happening around us. Have you ever been in a conversation where you're just feeling so much presence that it almost feels like everything else disappears and you're just right there with that other person, that deep listening? That to me is tapping into the presence. Some years ago, I heard someone say meditation practice. And I thought, it's so interesting. All these years of practicing meditation, I listened to the word meditation, but kind of missed the word practice. Because if you think about maybe you're a musician, right, Amy? Maybe you're a dancer. Maybe anything that we do that we practice for, we're practicing for some moment when we get to express that which we're practicing. And so as I think about meditation practice, I started asking myself, when I heard that, I started asking myself, what am I practicing for? And there was an awareness that came through that was so simple. And yet somehow I spent at least, let's say 20 years in meditation practice, missing this opportunity that meditation practice is an opportunity to be in the presence and be the presence in everyday life. And that's really different than what happens if I'm sitting and setting my timer, or I'm doing a group meditation, or I'm in sound healing. All of that is beautiful. And that is a way to really reorganize our bodies, our spirit, our essence, the truth of who we are, as a way of being in the world. And the quote that I have been living with this entire year so far is said to have been said by Jesus, and that is to be in the world, but not of it. And I am so aware of the simplicity and yet the profound nature of that sentence. I'm going to be as bold to say it's quite possibly, if not the most powerful sentence ever spoken, one of the most powerful sentences in its simplicity, to be in the world, but not of it. So what am I of? I am of spirit. I am of a recognition that there's a place within us that is unharmed and unharmable. And that's the conversation we're having this morning. here now and unharmable. And I remember being a small child and that just being absolutely innate. In other words, I didn't need to practice meditation, I was living it. What is meditation? Presence, openness, trust, curiosity, being with the pain and being with the joy, and noticing if I have a point of view that I want to move toward one and away from another, noticing if there's a little tightness in my body and can I just be present with it without trying to shift that. If I'm practicing that as a way to be in the world, I at some point thought, well, I need to learn how to do that. I want to learn how to be more present. I want to learn how to be more in touch with my emotions. I want to learn how to look at someone without having so much fear of what they might think of me. I want to learn how to trust my intuition and execute that or allow that to emerge in the world. And I thought it was about becoming. And I love what Pat said, and Amy, you pointed out that presence is not a stepping stone, it is a way of being. And I added that last part as a way of being, but not as a way of becoming. Because I'm not becoming something, I'm remembering the innate experience of being human. Because I also woke up one day and realized that we have collectively been saying, because we used to say we're human beings having a spiritual experience, and then the profound shift was we're spiritual beings having a human experience. And I woke up on one day and I had this question. Sometimes I wake up and I just hear this question, and then I sit with it. And the question was, what if we're spiritual beings having a spiritual experience? And what if that's the next level of conscious awareness? That it's not about there's this thing we call human and this thing we call spirit, because there's duality in that experience. And then there's this striving to become more spiritual. Or there might be, if you're anything like me, a striving to move beyond my humanity. Because I assure you that I thought when I started in New Thought, I started into recovery in 1986 and then went to my first Unity, I think 1988. But I had been reading the Daily Word for about a year. So really, the New Thought ideas started coming to me in 1987. And I remember thinking that it's about changing my mind and changing my experience and becoming something. And I remember thinking there was going to be a finish line. And I will tell you right now, all of you, I guarantee you, my 20-year-old self thought the finish line would have been quite a long way back there, that I would reach a place where I would no longer have the human experience. Now, I would not have said that, but I think there was a part of me, a big part of me actually, that wanted to reject the parts that were painful. And I've been really aware in the last few weeks of the powerful awareness to hold what I call the darkness and the light equally with openness, love, and compassion. And the awareness came through how do I support another person in that, right? How do I support a friend, or maybe it's a client for me, or maybe it's someone I'm training or a workshop I'm leading. How do I hold and meet someone? I did an interview on my show Unharmable, and I'm going to just plug it because these conversations have been incredible. Unharmable.com. I've been having these incredible conversations, and yesterday I had the opportunity to do four episodes, and my friend Jeremy Miller and I started talking about. He started talking about the metaphor of the cave and being the one who holds the light in the cave. And as he was saying it, I was aware that it's yes, it's holding the light in the darkness for myself and another. It's also honoring and embracing the darkness. It's going into the cave with someone and meeting them there and holding what we might call the darkness. And again, that's really duality anyway, to think that pain is somehow dark and joy is somehow light. When I meet someone in this curiosity, I can meet you in your pain and darkness. I'm not afraid to go there with you. And at the same time, I also hold the lantern of light for you. And there's something so powerful there that words are hard to describe this experience. I think that's the presence. Because what happens is if I'm in my mind and I'm trying to be present, there is duality in my thinking. I'm thinking that there is something good or bad or right or wrong. I want to be clear, there's nothing inherently wrong with that. And yet, as Pat instructed us so beautifully or offered us a possibility, true freedom is in the presence. And in the presence, I move beyond judgment. It doesn't mean my mind. See, this is where I thought there would be a finish line. I thought the finish line would be I would never have another judgment. I would never have another opinion. I would never think that I had something that seemed pleasant or something that seemed difficult. And that moment where I said, what if everything, or a voice within me maybe said, what if it's all spiritual? What if it's all the journey? And again, the journey is not toward, it's a remembering. And in that remembering, that true presence, we move beyond judgment. And judgment constricts, curiosity expands. So true presence is being in the curiosity. And as I've been reflecting on presence and the unharmable self, I've been really aware of what gets created when I live in my mind and what might get created to understand that the innate experience of being human is beyond the mind. And the freedom is in the simplicity of I don't need to change my mind. I don't need to change my thinking. I want to be clear about something. So we're going to take a little journey because it's paradoxical. I heard someone once say to truly speak about spirituality or consciousness is to speak in paradox because it's not about changing the story. It's about living beyond it. It's an understanding that I have thoughts, but I'm not my thoughts. Now, how many times have we heard that? And I bet we've all said it too. I have thoughts, but I'm not my thoughts. But then I have this thought and I get activated and I want to react or I want to fix or I want to shift. If I understood, not just intellectually, but understood at a very deep level that I'm not my thoughts, I would not get activated by that experience. I would say, isn't that interesting that I'm thinking that? Isn't it interesting that I have that judgment? And I remember a profound moment, again, in a meditation practice, and I don't remember who the teacher was at the time. The instruction was to, as we've all been in meditation practice, allow your thoughts to come and go like they're in a cloud. Allow your thoughts to come and go like a wave. And there was this process, and it felt like about 4 hours. It was probably about 10 minutes at the time, of becoming the observer of the thought. Become the observer of the thought and allow the thoughts to come and go. And there was this moment where whoever was leading the meditation practice asked the most simple yet profound question: if I'm not my thoughts, who and what am I? And I remember Reverend Joan Stedman talks about that a lot. Who is the observer? And if I'm not the thought, it's something I have, but not who and what I am, then who or what is observing? And as I sat on that, I started to have an experience in my body that was beyond the mind. It wasn't about changing the thought. It was an awareness that felt like an electricity, a bolt of lightning going very deep within me, not as an understanding, but as an experience. Oh my gosh. I have this mind, and this mind is incredible, and it's powerful, and it's useful as long as it's not the one in charge, or if I believe it's the truth of who I am, or if I want to go on the advanced course, or maybe it's less advanced course, I think I'm right. I think I'm right about this. You know what? It's like, how simple is it to realize that when I am in the perspective of right and wrong, I suffer. And when I am in true presence, I have freedom. And freedom does not mean that the outer conditions of the world, and let's be clear, my thoughts are an outer condition of the world. I want everyone to lean in to that for a moment. It's not about, and here's the paradox, it's not about changing my thoughts. It's about moving beyond them and understanding that there's an ultimate observer that sees those thoughts. And the paradox is, as soon as I'm able to do that, the thoughts lose their power. Now, the thoughts are an outer experience in the world. Now, some might say, what are you talking about? My thoughts are inside of me. Okay, well, that could be true, but not the deepest truth. And to understand that, I remember, and I talk about this a lot because it was such a profound experience. And sometimes I'm not great with years. 2006, I believe, I was in India and I had a profound experience where it felt like my ego dissolved. And the ego was just the mind. That's all the ego is, the mind. I think, as we've often talked about, ego gets a really bad rap in some spiritual circles. And that's what I was saying when I thought the ego would be gone. That's what I mean by the finish line. That's what I was hoping for. Now, Amy, if you and I would have talked back then, I don't think that I would have told you the goal is to never have another thought again. But boy, that's really what I would, that was the hook. But to have this experience in India where it felt like the ego dissolved and I could only see love and I could literally not see myself as separate from another person. I experienced the true oneness. And of course, I wanted that experience to last forever. And of course, it didn't. But did it? Because that's the big question. My mind came back in and had a different awareness of this experience. And I didn't yet know that something had permanently shifted. And there's the paradox. And as soon as I think the world needs to change in order for me to be free, I suffer. And when I tap into true presence, nothing in the world needs to change for me to be free. I experience true freedom. The world seems to change. That's the paradox. My goodness, I spent 20 years trying to change the world so that I could be happy. And then when I realized, and again, a realization is not a thought. A realization is remembering the truth of who and what we are. It's remembering that place of unharmability. And when we talk about an essential place that's unharmable, it does not mean there are parts of me that don't feel harmed. It means there's an essential place that regardless of what has happened and regardless of what I have done, which can often be more difficult than what's happened, that's where I often hold shame. I can't believe I did that. And I discovered something so, again, simple. That's my word of the day, apparently. Something so simple. When I felt and knew at a deep level that I was essential, that there's an essential place that's whole and unharmable, I acted that way in the world. I acted as love. When I believed that that was not true, I caused harm in the world. Can it be that simple? If I believe I'm broken, I'm causing harm. If I believe the world is broken, it causes harm to me. When I understand that, yes, a part of me can feel harmed, I'm not suggesting, because someone might hear me say there's a place within us that's unharmable, meaning that we're never going to feel harm again. That's not my experience, and perhaps others will have that. I will say that I experience that less and less as I grow in awareness. And I think the greatest paradox, and maybe this is what I'll close with, the greatest paradox to me, because we're talking about paradox, is to move beyond the mind begins to change the mind. Like I said, I spent absolutely my first 10 years in New Thought, change your thinking, change your life. That was, we hear that all the time. My thoughts create reality. So I was like, oh, I need to change them. So let me change them. Let me figure out how to change the narrative. Let me rewrite a new story. And all of that is really incredible. And then there was this place where I said, oh my goodness, it's not about rewriting the story. It's not about getting a new narrative. It's about understanding the nature of thought and the nature of true presence. And as I observe the thought, they lose power over me. And then I become, sometimes it's just comical to me. I begin to just have this deep belly laugh at how many years I've been holding on to this one story that was causing me so much harm. And then it lost its power. I didn't have to rewrite the story. I just thought, isn't that interesting that I've been thinking that about myself and the world for the last 20 years and getting the same result? How powerful and how simple it is to plant yourself in presence. And to plant yourself in presence is to plant a seed. And if I think about a seed, we put it in the fertile soil of consciousness and await its growth. But we're not passive there. We feed it, we water it, we honor that we need to be in that place of the darkness for a while, and then the new growth happens. Again, a paradox. I don't make the growth. I don't plant a seed in the ground and make a maple tree. But if I put a maple seed in and I create the conditions for its growth, it grows. Life is always growing. I remember walking down a sidewalk one time and seeing a crack in the sidewalk and all that stuff growing out of it. We might call it weeds. But life is always wanting to grow. And the only thing that it, in many cases, about 99.999% of the time, the only thing that prevents the growth that I'm seeking is the conditions that I'm not allowing for it to grow. Visioning, meditation, trust, openness. Plant yourself in presence, discover or to remember or recognize. In other words, move. I know recognize is a thought, but to move beyond, I'll have to create a new word, something beyond cognition into an igniting of something so much more powerful. Not becoming something, but remembering the deepest truth of who and what we are. As always, I'm so grateful to be here. Peace and blessings, everyone.
As always, we are so grateful that you are here.
Thank you, Amy.
And bring us such a powerful and profound and illuminating message. As you were speaking, I was jotting down a lot of little things you were saying here. Becoming and something about becoming aware. It's like we need the presence. We need to be still in this moment to become aware of those you were talking about, all of a sudden becoming aware of, oh, I've been having that thought pattern for my whole life or however long, and now I'm realizing I can move beyond that, and it's not so much about changing or rewriting that thought. It's like, oh, I can dance with that in a different way. It doesn't have the same hold. Uh, and I think it begins with that awareness to even know that thought is there. Because until we know that that's a program running,
Mhm.
we can't move beyond until there's so
Well,
many points here. Go
Well,
ahead.
I love what you're saying. It's so important because it's so true. I wasn't aware that my narrative was creating my life. And so to become aware, it really allows myself to have a lot of compassion for my journey because change your thinking, change your life is that point of like, oh, my narrative is creating reality. And
Mm-hmm.
that took me a decade because I'm like, no, that's not true. It's happening. I see it. There it is. It's a fact, right? So, but
Right.
and so it is a journey of that. So I really appreciate you brought that into it.
So layered. And then, it comes back to, where and and it's all perfect too. Wherever we
Right.
are, we're exactly where we're supposed to be on the journey. So, there's this temptation when you finally get it in the moment, like, why am I just getting it now? You're just like,
Right.
that's, you want to fight with yourself about how long it took. It's like you're here.
Yeah.
We're so complex. We're so interesting. We really, really are. If I like how you brought us to, if I believe I am or the world is broken, that is what's creating harm, because uh we can decide, I forget who said it, but it's like you can decide that nothing's a miracle or everything's a miracle, right? It's all in our perception, our perspective, how we decide to interact
Yeah.
with what's
And
going on.
I think where people can get like either confused or hooked or activated by that is What we're not saying is there aren't things that are happening in the world that are harmful. That's where I think it's important to acknowledge
Mm,
that, right? Because that's why I say a part of me can get harmed and a part of me can cause harm. So that is true. And that's where we go into the spiritual bypass piece. And quite frankly, I think New Thought has lived there sometimes where it's like everything's love and light. Let's
right,
pretend like it's not happening. And
right,
that this is different than that. This is saying, wow, there is harm happening in the world, but there's an essential place that can never be harmed. And when I understand that at a deep level, I'm not causing harm. And that's
right.
the freedom.
Yeah, and I think that yeah, exactly. And I think you spoke to this when you're talking about the dark. And it's not like we're fighting the dark or saying the dark is bad or wrong. It's like this is part of the experience, and we're not. So similarly to the ego conversation, it's not like we're trying to fight against this big bad, you know, uh, evil ego
Evil, right?
monster. Yeah, because that it's like yeah, this is all part of uh, realization. We see the essential. I'm looking at some of the notes. Okay, let me go
I was,
in to talk
I
to
was
everybody here in the
okay.
chat. Go ahead.
I was thinking about realization, and that is to acknowledge what is real.
Mm,
Right, a realization is to remember the reality, and the
hmm.
reality, what we call reality in the world, is actually more of an illusion than the inner reality, right? And so in New Thought, we call it
Right.
ultimate reality and relative reality. Relative reality is always changing. Ultimate
Right.
reality is that essential place of wholeness.
Hmm. Yeah, right. And I know some of this can sound like if it's the first time you're hearing some of this, it can sound a little activating. Like, okay, you guys are really out there. How does this situation not really get under your skin? And we have to do something about this and fight against and, roar and all of that. And so uh what did you say? If I understood, then I'm not my thoughts. Um, I would think it was just an interesting thought coming through. Okay, let's check in with everybody here. Hi, everybody. We are. Anybody have any questions? Lucinda said, so happy to see you, TJ.
Thank you.
Yes, everybody's digesting, I think, is probably what's going on. I liked how you brought in that when we're in the perspective of right and wrong, there's suffering. And, simple little awarenesses like that are so key
Mhm.
to notice where do we go into that space and get really locked in. It's fine. We're human, right? You said, we don't ever get to. What did you say about the finish line? I really appreciate that. Yeah, like we had this idea, like we're gonna hit this finish line, and then never again are we going to have an opinion or
Right,
any.
right.
It's an admirable goal.
Right.
Um, I love how you said, what if we're spiritual beings having a spiritual experience? And that really resonates for me because if we're looking at whatever's happening, even in the dark, even in the difficult moments that we call difficult, or the things in the world that don't seem fair, or whatever the words we want to use, if we can come back to that recognizing that we are spiritual beings and it's all part of our spiritual experience, it's really mind blowing.
Hmm. And which is a great way to say it, right? Because it's like, oh my gosh, the mind is either expanding or I'm moving beyond it, or like it's not in control.
Mm,
Because the mind, and the way I say it is, in the awakened state, we could say the mind or we could say ego, either way. becomes a delivery system for spirit. It becomes useful, right?
Mhm.
Like our mind, our intellect is incredible at what it without it, I don't think, well, I mean, we know, I was going to say something a little ridiculous. Without it, we might not be alive. No, without it, we would not be alive, right? So we would be in a different realm of consciousness. So for
Mhm.
whatever reason, we've incarnated here and we have this body, we have this mind, we have
Mhm.
these emotions. And to think of them as separate from spirit, I think creates that suffering. And because
True.
in my journey, and this is true for me, it might not be true for someone else. I thought the goal was to be rid of all that and only be spirit. And when I
Mhm.
had this awareness, what if it's all spirit? Then it's like, oh, feeling my emotions. I mean, what does a little kid do? They feel their feelings, they're very
Right.
present. And so we teach them that it's not polite to stare, right? All the things we do. So like it's all innate. We know that on some level, and each of us gets to have our own journey of like a return to that.
Mhm. Yeah, that's so big of another dive. So I thought, are we
Good thing,
gonna, am I gonna dive there or
good thing we
maybe
have a
let's check.
workshop, right?
Good thing we have a workshop. Yes, because there's a lot there. Um, okay, well, unless my phone is just slow and they're not loading, I think everybody is digesting. Yes. Yes. Okay. So we are going to go into the workshop and talk about how TJ started this be in the world but not of it. I really, really appreciated that because it's a different experience when we start diving into how are we unharmable and really looking at maybe sometimes the patterns that this goes into the suffering conversation that like what are we gaining if we just keep ruminating on that suffering, like there's maybe something there to excavate and figure out, and I know we're going to go into all of this in the workshop or parts of this. So let's wrap up here and then we will take a little hydration nourishment break and then we will come back into the Zoom link. I'm going to drop it right here in the chat and it's also on the homepage of our website, unityinspiredliving.org. I was waiting for any questions to load, questions, comments, or as TJ would say, smart remarks, but I don't see any. So I'm thinking that we just have a lot of, oh, wait, am I had a feeling my phone was not loading. Okay.
Okay.
Bam, Michael J said, bam, workshop. Wonderful reminders, TJ. Planting a seed in your mind and letting it grow. Erica says, asking the right questions about those beliefs to exchange them for better. Jan says, I resonate with the statement. I have this mind and it is useful as long as I don't think I'm right. Yeah, the
Right.
right, the right, wrong. Ooh, we can trap there. We learn so much shame and conditioning. We have to learn to be again, like you said. So looking forward to the workshop. Yes, yes. Okay. All right, everybody. Yay. Um, we love this conversation because we all want freedom. So love you all for being here. Thank you. Remember that if this message, this space supports you, nourishes you, our community adds so much to your life, we invite you to participate in that sacred exchange of giving, and you can do that on our website. Your generosity allows for the space of healing and presence and transformation to continue. So thank you for that. We are going to close with our prayer of protection. And I like to just remind everybody, I speak this to you as it was intended by the author, as an addiction, a blessing spoken over you. So it's a reminder that wherever you go, that presence of love surrounds you, moves through you, is you, walks with you, all of that. So let me oh, where is it? Share my screen and bring it up here and let it land for you. The light of God surrounds you, the love of God enfolds you, power of God protects you, presence of God watches over you, the mind of God guides you, the life of God flows through you. The laws of God direct you. The peace of God abides within you. The joy of God uplifts you. The strength of God renews you. The beauty of God inspires you. And wherever you are, God is, and all is well. Amen. I love you all dearly. Remember, it's easy to shine on. So be bright, the bright lights that you are. We are going to take about a 20-ish minute break and we're going to come back in the Zoom room and we are going to dive in. Thank you so much, TJ Woodward, for being with us today. We are so grateful for you. Love, blessings, peace, everybody. See you next week.